Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Players Zone, a YouTube channel and advantage Inter Milan in the Serie A title race. The last few weeks has been topsy-turvy in the Italian top flight, but there's one thing that I've picked up, a common trend. Inter Milan to be back on track. We've seen it in the Champions League, only conceding one goal in their first 4 games, and now gone top of the Serie A as we enter the international break and before we enter the silly season of the Christmas period. And Napoli summer, the big names joining the football club: Rasmus Højlund, Kevin De Bruyne. You've got Lorenzo Luca, Miguel Gutierrez, Vanja Milinkovic-Savic. The names go on, Sam Bergkamp, on and on and on. The side is stacked. It is a Serie A super team in many regards, off the back of winning the title under Antonio Conte. But many, including myself, gave up hope on Inter Milan this season. The poor performances in the Club World Cup, going away from Inzaghi and Chivu, not having a great start to the season. We mustn't forget 2 losses in their first 3 games, coming to Udinese and Juventus as well. They looked vulnerable at the back. They looked slow in transition. They didn't have that midfield control. But what I've seen the last few weeks is Inter Milan have found their mojo, their confidence, and the displays have matched the level of what we've seen the last 2 to 3 seasons. Whereas for Napoli, a bright start to the year, very good in front of goal, great attacking football has dried up, and they've gone back to being quite hit or miss week in, week out. And on the weekend for me was a prime example of where these 2 clubs are at right now. Obviously, sandwiched in between these 2, we've also got Roma, we've also got AC Milan, we've also got Bologna in the fight as well, and Como have only lost 1 game this season. So it is a massive fight at the top of Serie A, but these 2 clubs many see as 1A and 1B, or first and second in terms of the favourites for the title. The way Inter Milan started, we didn't see them being top already come match day 10, I believe. But the way they've fought back and refound their confidence, as I said, was seen on the weekend. They faced up against a Lazio side that hasn't been that great this season, but what they've done recently is keep clean sheets. 4 clean sheets in a row entering this matchup here. And inside of 3 minutes, Lautaro Martinez finds the back of the net, the Inter Milan skipper, getting on the end of some great pressing from the front. Initially, it was Sucic, and then it was Bastoni to follow in and win the ball back. Once he nicked that ball, releasing it to the Inter Milan skipper, who, on an angle, tight finish, curving it off the crossbar into the back of the net for a 1-0 lead inside of 3 minutes. And that goal for me just emphasised the improvement we've seen under Chivu, which is a much more aggressive side in terms of how they get at you without the football. We look back last season in the Champions League versus Barcelona, probably their best game we've seen from the Inzaghi Inter Milan side, where they sat in over 2 legs and counter-attacked well. But what they didn't do was counter-press. I think that's what we're seeing more and more this season with this Chivu Inter Milan side. They are able to counter-press. They're able to get at the opposition and get at them higher up the pitch. We've seen the greater involvement of DeMarco and Denzel Dumfries. The back 3 now looks established. Bastoni on the left, Acerbi in the middle, and on the right, Akanji, who's finally found his feet. And I think this game here, what we saw, it was 2 different types of goals. The first goal comes from the counter press, pressing high up the pitch. The second goal in the second half, which ends up being tapped home by the informed Boni, was them just linking the game up, win the ball back. It was, I think, every player basically touched the football, was turned over for a short period of time, one back, a great crossfield pass, DiMarco getting in behind. He was basically playing as a centre forward so high up the pitch, and then he fizzed the ball across the 6-yard box for Boni to tap home. And that, for me, just shows the qualities Inter Milan side, the belief they're playing with once again. DiMarco, high up the pitch, playing as a centre forward to assist Boni for that second goal. Sucic and Bastoni high up the pitch, pressing for the first goal. You've got a good team build-up goal. You've got a great pressing goal, and you keep a clean sheet again. Summer making one-on-one saves in the 87th minute. There were some great movements from Lazio, Guendouzi getting chances in the 53rd minute, but that was well saved as well. So look, Lazio did play some good football, but they were unable to make a lot of key opportunities because of how good the Inter Milan core was. We're looking at that midfield trio again: Hakan Calhanoglu, Barella, and Sucic. Fantastic. As I said, the back 3 are in great form. And then Dumfries and DeMarco refining what we saw early on last season, which is them being up and down the touchline. And for me, it's one of the most exciting watches, Inter Milan, when they're in full force, when they're flowing, when they're getting that attacking football played. And they've got players like Esposito, they've got players like Thuram off the bench as well. And all of a sudden, some of the signings they've made is starting to make sense with how solid this side is. Lazio come to this game with 4 clean sheets in a row. Inter put 2 past them. Inter themselves keep another clean sheet in the league. And it just builds the case that maybe this Inter side, we shouldn't have doubted them so early in the season. Yes, they're aging. Yes, they're not getting any younger. But players like Boni, Susic, players like Esposito, Akanji, coming in and just rejuvenating the squad. Just a few spots around the park to give that renewed energy and intensity to keep this side up at the top of the Champions League, competing for the league. And it is a question we have to ask ourselves is what do Inter Milan go and do this season? Because I mentioned at the start of the season, is it time they maybe just put aside the Champions League and go full focus on the league? Because if you end up this sort of Inter Milan mini dynasty, which haven't really won much, being sort of the point, if you only come out of it with 1 league title and 2 Supercoppers, going to 2 Champions League finals but losing both, it is nowhere near a dynasty. It's nowhere near good enough for some of the best Juve sides or the AC Milan sides of the early 2000s. I feel like I'd love to see them commit to one. And it won't be them because it's Inter Milan. They'll compete on all fronts. But if they had full focus on the league this year, the way they're playing their football and how consistent they've been since match day 3, I can't see Napoli, I can't see Roma catching them. Because right now, it's similar to Manchester City in the Premier League where they've found their form, they've found their formula, and they're in full flight right now, and they're flying in the league. And this is a league which is so competitive. As I said, with the likes of Roma, Bologna, Como, Juventus still around the place, AC Milan, as well as Napoli. It's so hard to break away from the pack, but if any team can do it right now, it looks like Inter Milan will do it. The experienced heads, some great form of players like Boni, Lautaro, Susic, and Calhanoglu. It all seems to be going in the right direction right now. Inter lost 2 out of the first 3 games. Since then, only lost 1 game. That was to Napoli, 3-1. But the last few weeks, I've been impressed. 9 goals scored in their past 5 games. Only 4 goals conceded in that time there. That type of ratio for an Italian side is fabulous. I know we get used to it in the Premier League and the Bundesliga, seeing teams score 15 goals in the last 5 games. But in terms of how competitive and defensively sound the Italian league is, 9 goals in 5 is a good record. 2 goals a game wins you a game of football in the Serie A, and they are doing that and doing that quite easily at times, cruising games. 26 goals scored this season, by far the most goals scored by any side in the Serie A. Next closest is their crosstown rivals in Milan with 17. So 9 goals clear of the next highest scoring side in the league. And you think about the clean sheets now they're keeping, in particular Champions League, only 1 goal conceded in their first 4 games. This Inter Milan side now is flowing. It is defensively solid at the back, which we've seen across the last few seasons. But what they're not doing is just sitting in. They're being aggressive and getting at you. And maybe that's why I was a bit disappointed with them in the Club World Cup, because they seem to be bypassed way too easily. And maybe because they were just trying to adjust to this new aggressive, front-footed defensive system. Because the ball playing's always been there. The commitment of the wing-backs have always been there. But it was more of a pragmatic 9 behind the football type system, and everyone would defend as one, whereas now you're defending as one, but you're defending up the pitch and getting at the opposition. I've seen that much more recently under Shivu and his Inter Milan side, and their clinicalness in front of goal is just fabulous. The goals they're scoring, the amount, the quality of them is top tier. And you got players like Boni, 3 goals and 4 assists in his last 8 games in all competitions. Sommer with superb games versus Roma in particular. Union Saint-Gilloise in the Champions League. And recently versus Lazio on the weekend, a very solid display from him with over 6 saves there as well. Hakan Calhanoglu and Nicolo Barella finding their best form. And I think these two are so important to this Inter Milan side, because Calhanoglu was out in many regards come the season start, but he didn't get his moves. He's rejoined with the squad and refound his focus. Barella's refound his best football, and now they're just rolling in midfield. They're winning midfield battles. They're winning that ball back well. They're controlling the ball well. Susic just added a different sort of outlook onto the game into midfield, a little bit more aggressive, a ball winner in midfield to allow Barella to go and express himself in the final third. It's a great little buzz in there with Henrik Mkhitaryan to roll through that midfield as well. Was Zalewski as a wingback option they had in the past. Used to invert into midfield. Wasn't quite the right balance. Zielinski has gone in there at times, but I think Susic this season has been the ultimate link and ultimate player to help boost that midfield. And it's been a great signing in many regards with him now joining in that midfield alongside Calhanoglu and Barella. So they're rolling right now, Inter Milan. I'm very impressed with them, and I'm thinking they're back to some of their best form of last season. Then you compare to Napoli, 2 wins from the last 5 Serie A games. They created 0.24 XG versus a very solid Bologna side, but a Bologna side that hasn't been ruthless defensively this season. They only managed to 4 shots versus a Bologna side, and they actually were going up against a keeper that was 17 years old on the weekend, but couldn't create enough. Kevin De Bruyne out injured, unable to find the right balance defensively. And for me, with the amount of names they've got in this side, there's not enough goals in the game right now. Because they've conceded 10 goals, not too bad, but only scored 4 goals in the last 5 games in all competitions. Bear in mind, they've taken on a Frankfurt side in the Champions League that conceded 15 goals before that point in time. So it's rocky stages right now for Napoli. They need to get back on track. They need to refine their confidence. They went back to a very similar system on the weekend versus Bologna, but they were totally outplayed. McTominay alongside Anguissa and Lobotka were just outrunning midfield versus Bologna. They were unable to get the ball into the feet of Rasmus Højlund. Elmas quiet on the flanks. Politano always tries his guts out, but never really got on the football enough on the weekend. And defensively, they didn't really put much of a foot wrong. It was just quality for Bologna in the final third. And in the Serie A in particular, you need to be at your ruthless best in the final third because of how solid defences are. And they just don't look like that right now. They're not creating enough opportunities. And this is in the last sort of 5 to 6 games. They've not looked good enough in the final third. This isn't just the weekend. This has been multiple weeks developing. You know, that draw with Frankfurt in the Champions League off the back of a demolition 6-2 by PSV last time at the Champions League. Confidence and form right now is an all-time low. The back line obviously has been unbelievable, but they need to go to a next level if they want to stay competitive, because this Serie A title race is going to be a matter of, you know, these one-off games, these one-off moments where you have to take your opportunities, you have to nick a point away from home or take your chance to win a game when you're not playing well. And right now they're letting too many games slip. 2 wins out of the last 5 games in Serie A. Teams are going to go through bad patches, but that's not good enough for this Napoli side that is so stacked of talent, that has a goalkeeper probably the best in the league. I'm just worried they're slipping away here. And we look at Conte's sides over the last few seasons and across different clubs and different situations, different leagues. They really struggle in the second season to come back with that same energy and that same intensity. And mustn't we forget, Napoli only had 1 game a week last season with no European football. They now have European football, and maybe it's showing. The legs are starting to go. The consistency is starting to go. And that spark in the final third is going. In terms of the season as a whole, last year 4 losses across all 38 games. This season already 3 losses, and we're only just under a third of the way through the season. So they need to refine that ruthlessness. They need to find that consistency. And you know what? It was this time last year where they really kicked into gear and went on this fantastic run to close the gap to Inter Milan. And at times actually jumped them in the league as they came into February. So this is the time last season where they got going. They need to get going now after return to this international break. Because right now, Inter Milan look better than them. Right now, Roma look better than them. Como look better than them. And I've got to be honest, teams like AC Milan looking more consistent than them as well. It's just that right now, a similar problem for Napoli and Juventus. They don't have enough goals in their game, and as such, they're slipping away from the top group. And it's not crisis chat because it's so close up there, but because of how close it is, 1, 2, 3 points is a lot in this title race because of how each team takes points off each other. But right now, the point of this video is it is advantage Inter Milan. And not many people are talking about how good this Inter Milan side is playing on the European stage, but also domestically as well in Serie A. They are back to their ruthless best. Lautaro is scoring goals. The new signing Boni is scoring goals. Thuram back from injury, looking dangerous in the final third. They've got a midfield that's cooking once again. And they develop their game once more to not be so pragmatic and get at the opposition. So bright signs for Inter Milan fan. If you are a Serie A fan or Inter Milan fan, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below, because I've been very impressed with what I've seen in the last few weeks, and I'm starting to worry about Napoli and how consistent they can be across the season. Because right now, Inter Milan's best is looking at a 9 out of 10. Their worst, 6, 7 out of 10 potentially. Whereas Napoli, their best is probably 10 out of 10, but their worst is looking at a 4 out of 10 right now. They're just not creating enough for me to be a consistent title threat this year. They need to turn it around come the turn of the international break and into the new year, because it's going to be a very, very monumental title fight once we come back for the Christmas period. But as I said, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Have I got it wrong? What are your thoughts? Let me know that in the comment section. If you enjoyed the video, guys, smash a like on it, subscribe to the Players Zone channel, press that post notification bell. And where do you think this Serie A title fight will go as we move into 2026? Because it is so tight at the top of the Serie A. With that being said, guys, have a great rest of your day. I'll see you guys on the podcast or video very, very soon. Until next time, see you later.